Dr. Charles Selengut is our next speaker. Dr. Selengut, who was a participant in some of that early ecumenical interfaith activism at the UTS that Dr. Kaufman was talking about, is an expert on sociology, psychology, and politics of religious fundamentalism and new religious movements. He publishes books, articles, and monographs on Islamic, Christian, and Jewish fundamentalists in international relations. He is the author of Sacred Fury, Understanding Religious Violence, contributed to the McArthur Foundation at the University of Chicago's Project on Fundamentalism, National Endowment for the Humanities Fellow at Harvard University, and a 1997 finalist for the Carnegie Professor of the Year Award. So Dr. Selengut will be speaking on interfaith encounters, debating, dialogue, and dining. Okay, let's welcome Dr. Charles Selengut.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. As Tyler said, my topic is entitled Interfaith Encounters, Debating, Dialogue, and Dining. I want to begin, is this working? I want to begin with a Talmudic story. In the Jewish Talmud, the Compendium of Law, L-A-W-L-O-R-E, there are two famous rabbis. One was Rabbi Hillel and the other was Rabbi Shammai. The story in the Talmud is that a convert, an atheist or a pagan, we're not certain, comes to Rabbi Shammai, who is the great scholar at the time of Jesus, actually, about 100 years later perhaps, and says to him, Rabbi Shammai, I want to become Jewish, but you have to tell me all about Judaism standing on one foot. Shammai gets furious. Is this working? They're both working? Okay, that's fine. So Rabbi Shammai rejects the possible convert and throws him out. He goes to the next school, the school of Rabbi Hillel, and he says, listen, Rabbi Hillel, Shammai just kicked me out, but let me ask you, can you tell me all about Judaism on one foot and I will convert? Hillel says, for sure. I'll tell you while you're standing on one foot. Well, what is it? Rabbi Hillel says, what is hateful to you, do not do to someone else. All the rest is commentary. And this explained the difference between these two schools. There's another difference. There's a famous argument in the Talmud about weddings. If you go to a wedding and you see the bride, what do you say about the bride? Shammai said you have to say the bride is, if she's beautiful, say she's beautiful. If she's not that beautiful, you say she's not that good looking. Hillel said no, all brides are beautiful. And so the rabbis in the school of Shammai came to him and said, Hillel, how can you say that? You're lying. But Hillel said, for the sake of peace and making people feel good, you can tell white lies. And this is encapsulated in law. The differences between the schools were great, but yet they respected each other. In general, the school of Shammai was deeper, more learned, actually more correct in a way, but the Talmudic view is that whenever there's a dispute, except for very few cases, we always follow the school of Hillel. Why is that? Why is that? And even though they disagreed with each other, they married each other, they ate together, they respected each other, though they were fierce religious competitors. It always fascinated me, why was the school of Hillel so successful against the greater intellectual wisdom and skill of the Shammai school? The Talmud asked this question as well. One of the things I think that explains is the school of Hillel studied and listened carefully to the positions of the Shammai school. Why, Shammai was dismissive. They didn't care what Hillel said. They had their own argument. The Talmud explains that listening and studying to an intellectual adversary brings wisdom, enhances one's own point of view. And therefore the Talmud says, if you forgive me, I want to say it in Hebrew, the Talmud says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel are correct. And there's a question, if they're both correct. Yes, they're both correct, but will follow the school of Hillel because they listen to the other point of view. So in general, the Jewish law follows the Hillel point of view. Why am I bringing this up? Firstly, I love this story, but it's more important. Listening and studying the view, the positions, the faith and perspectives of those with whom one disagrees is the essence of genuine religious encounters and can lead to peaceful and harmonious relations between people or groups with whom we may have disagreements, even serious and existential disagreements. So I think the school of Hillel and Shammai gives us a template of how we could go about doing religious dialogue. Frank Kaufman, our wonderful speaker, my dear friend, and I have been involved in interfaith meetings and international conferences for over several decades, mainly through the Interreligious Federation of World Peace. But even before that, in the old days, Tyler, by such groups called the New Era and the Council for the World's Religions, which were organized and planned by Dr. Frank Kaufman. These meetings turned out to be wonderful meeting places for the world's religious leaders and for scholars and academicians studying religion and the serious challenges facing religious communities in the age of globalization. The leadership of the IRFWP, the Federation for World Peace, understood that as the 20th century waned, the old era of religious separatism, where each religious community was situated in its own geographic or social spaces, where adherents, living solely together with their own co-religionists, all sharing a religious culture and sensibility, was now over. We live in a new global world. In this age of globalization, international migration, global social media, and world travel, no religion can remain ensconced in their religious enclave. In this new reality, what was in the past the outsiders, the religious opposition, the heretics, even the enemy, was now in this world our local supermarket clerks, our mailman, our physician, teammate, banker, or housekeeper. We no longer were religiously separated. We met the other in the ball field when our kids were playing soccer or when we went to the baker or to the butcher, as it were. This new reality of living together in a pluralistic world requires a reorientation, a new way of religious commitment and faith. It necessitates a willingness to see other religious believers, even those with whom we have existential differences, as worthy, to view their faith commitment as valid, as genuine, even though it may not accord with our own deeply held religious convictions. These meetings were designed to meet these goals. Frank organized these meetings precisely to meet these goals. Each meeting was planned to have people from the world's established religions and well-known religions, as well as representatives from new religious movements, including communities that were unpopular at the time and even stigmatized by the popular media, so-called cults. The participants were invited to an attractive venue to dine together, to meet face-to-face in small sessions, to discuss and debate, and to experience each other's humanity. The commonalities and much of the sameness facing all religionists, as well as acknowledging the theological and policy differences. This was conducted in a setting without conditions, albeit with the understanding, as Martin Buber put it, in meeting the other as a thou, willing to hear and recognize the humanity of the other, to recognize, as Jewish theology puts it, the Tselem Elokim, the divine image in each person, to value their beliefs and validity and their many different religious views. How was this accomplished? How was this accomplished? Number one, there was an attitude of dignity. All the sponsoring organizations had volunteers warmly welcoming the participants. There was special food for different communities, vegetarianism, even food without eggs, so everything was met. This was not easily achieved, and there were many mishaps. Please know that there were people attending these early conferences who had never been to an international hotel, to whom Western-style food and gender interactions were foreign, and many had never been in the presence, nor had they ever interacted with people who are of a different belief. And they were often coming feeling antagonistic or even hostile to the other. Hard to believe. Some people were frightened, deeply suspicious, ambivalent about the whole process, as if to say, what have I gotten into? Still, in my view, the sense of dignity and respect, which was the governing norm, helped ease the many possible conflicts and difficulties. I want to give you one example, perhaps, of something that occurred. So, at one meeting in Paris, in Canada, I was sitting at a table with 3 Muslim scholars. I won't mention their names, but Frank and Tyler will know. Forgive me. One of the scholars was the head of the Muslim college in London, a scion of the Prophet, very distinguished, thank you, a very distinguished family. Another was a relatively young convert to Islam, raised Catholic, but something of a scholar and a pious Muslim. The third was an old sheikh from Syria, and we all sat together. The waiter came around and asked, "What would you like to have? We have beef, chicken, or salad." I, being an Orthodox Jew, said, "I'll take the salad," not wanting to eat unkosher food. The sheikh was asked through an assistant, said, "I'll take the chicken. It's a Christian country and it's halal." The head of the Muslim college said, "I'm going to do like the sheikh." They asked the young Catholic convert, and he said, "I'll take the salad. I don't want to trust people. It's not real halal. You're not allowed to do it." The old sheikh and the principal of the Muslim college spoke and said, "Listen, you can. We have a lot of stories of the Prophet that this is permitted." He said, "No," and they said, "Let's listen to our young comrade." And all 4 of us had salad. By that I mean there was dialogue, there was listening that took place. The second important ingredient was the almost unparalleled freedom of expression and the refusal to demand conformity and political correctness. This was made possible, thank you, this was made possible by the absence of any official representatives. Please remember, any number of the participants held deeply held views on the nature of family. 5 minutes? 2. So there were many people who had very strong views, but on the other hand, through the dialogue, things could happen. I remember one well-known American feminist scholar explained to me at the coffee break that she learned much from a Middle Eastern imam about the importance of authority and tradition and family life in Islam. though it challenged her commitment to personal freedom, individual, and her view of gender equality. I can also recall personally what was and remains for me, and I think for many Western people from Western traditions, shocking depictions, even enactments of tribal animistic rights. Still, I remain thankful to the organizations and to Frank for giving me the opportunity to gain greater insight into the human search for transcendent reality. So I want to go along with, I have much more to say. I usually speak between an hour and 15 minutes, but I want to just end. What can we learn from dialogue? I'll leave you with this idea. Christa Stendel, who's a professor at Harvard University, worked for the Council for the Center for World Religions. When they asked him about dialogue, he said the best thing that could happen, and I love this word, is holy envy. Holy envy. For example, when I heard Christians speaking about Christ, and I'm not a Christian and I'm not a believer in Christianity, I had envy. I said, who could not love a religion when God took human form and died for me? I was envious when I seeing unificationists who welcome everybody, even those who disagree, and provide such dignity and love. I'm envious of such a religion that provides such deep feelings for the other. I can't marshal that, but I'm envious. When I visited my Muslim colleagues and I saw, shura, they make lines during the prayer and everybody bows, I said, what a brotherhood, how beautiful. And I'm not Muslim. So my last words to you is that through dialogue, we need not agree. We need not agree. There are differences. But the word I'd like to use is validity. You could disagree, but it's valid for the other person. One other minute. This seems to be a habit. In the Jewish tradition, the idea is, and this is based upon the teachings of Moses Maimonides, the great medieval philosopher. Maimonides argued in this book, More Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed, he argued, which was actually written in Arabic, incidentally, he argued that it is actually God's will that we have different religious communities, that God desires different paths. They're all valid, but they're different. And Maimonides argued, even in the times of messianic transformation of the universe, God will want us to meet him with our different rituals, our different garb, perhaps our different beliefs, uniting in the belief in the destiny of humanity to find the divine amongst ourselves. Thank you very much.